Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sunday Scaries. Yes, you will be starting your week here. I'm Luke Janesco.
And I'm Dylan Newell.
What a week. What a week. Well, ending of a week now, beginning of a week here on the Sunday Scaries. We closed it fairly strong. I mean, slightly conflicting because we did watch Prey, which is extremely strong. And
Yes, very
then we
good.
watched They Slash Them, and maybe not so strong. But
Not
we
so
left
good.
both those reviews up. You
hmm
can check those out.
Yep, those went up yesterday. At least the spoiler review for Prey, and then the They Slash Them went up yesterday. So, yeah, mixed bag for sure
Yes.
as far as our week goes. But I had a lot of fun. I definitely enjoy making the videos. It was nice to have those very big highs with the Prey stuff, and then just some lows with the They Slash Them. But that's the movie world for you. It's
But
like
but
it's
now
just
but now Prey is our security blanket. So when we watch a horrible film, we can go back and be comforted by the quality that is now in the Predator franchise. And I don't know, is this going to be the last time that we mention Prey for the next, I guess, few weeks after the Sunday Scaries? Or are we going to find a way to bring it in next week?
no, we'll find a way. I guarantee you there will be ways to bring it up because we're constantly talking about streaming and content that's coming on streaming. So now we have a good reference to point to. So it's like not only were we talking about it in anticipation, but now we can be like, but this is going to be good. It could be like Prey. So
There we go. That's the standard bearer now. That's our high
Mhm.
mark of every film that's coming directly to streaming. Hocus Pocus 2 has to live up to Prey.
Oh yeah, I forgot that that's going right to streaming. Yeah, we're gonna have to cover that one. So I'm sure that'll be one that everybody's really looking forward to. Again, I'm not. It's not something I grew up with. It's not near and dear to my heart. My wife would slap me for saying that just because it's like she wouldn't do that. But it's just one of those things where it's like she loves that. She grew up with it. It's one of her favorites. We watch it every year, but it's just like for me, it's always just been like a okay, yeah.
It's
Like I
just
said,
there
I'm more
for
of a
you.
Halloween Town kid. Like
Yeah.
I watch those, so like that's where
No,
I
no,
land.
and I grew up with Hocus Pocus, so I get where she's coming from. I mean, that is kind of my gateway horror right there. Even
hmm
though, I mean, we talked about it. I was watching Friday the 13th at the same time I was watching Hocus Pocus, so I can compartmentalize both of them to say, this Hocus Pocus is not necessarily straight up horror. It's that fun kind of tongue in cheek, which is also great. But yeah, Halloween Town, I totally get that as well.
Oh yeah.
I was consuming any of that fun little Halloween stuff, which, um, not to touch on too many subjects, I know that they're kind of doing a little more of that Spirit Halloween movie, and you did a short for that.
Yes, I
I think
did.
last
I,
week.
I covered the trailer. Yeah. I thought that was like Monday, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I know. It's like
Early
it's just
on,
been such a hectic week that it's just like, yeah, I think
hella blurred now.
that one, I know we didn't even talk about that much off air, but yeah, that was interesting. That's like I said in my short, definitely on that kind of goosebumps kind of side, hocus pocusy kind of thing. Not really for me, I would say. I don't know if it's going to be for us, but I understand why they're making it.
Yeah,
And I'm just curious to see how it's going to be received. I
yeah.
don't think this is going to end up in theaters. I don't know if that's been confirmed or
I'd
not.
be very surprised if it did.
Yeah, because it's pretty low budget, but I mean, you still got some big names in there. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It definitely looks like some kids could have a good bit of fun with it, and it could. I don't know if it's gonna be that way, but I mean, it easily could just be something like a couple generations from now, look back on and like we look back on Halloween Town or Hocus Pocus. I mean, I feel like the Goosebumps movies, at least the first one, have gotten enough love that they probably will. There will definitely be kids in 20 years that are like, oh yeah, I grew up watching that. Like I love that movie.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like. Goosebumps I'll turn on. It's just like a fun little digestible, horror. You know what I mean? Where it's
Mhm.
like it's not straight up, but it's fun. And I think Spirit Halloween is going to be the exact same thing. Where I think it's going to be a fun movie, and it's probably going to be rated like 10% Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. Where it's not going to be great at all, but it'll be a lot of fun just to turn on and be like, oh, you can waste a hour and a half when you just have that on and you're doing something around the house, especially when the leaves are changing and it's getting a little cooler outside. I think it'll be a fun watch. So I'm intrigued. I know you're not necessarily gonna maybe make time depending on where what outlet it is out on, but I'll make sure that I can kind of check it out and see what the quality is there.
Yeah, I have a 6-month-old now, so I mean, as we get a little older here within the next couple of years, I'm sure I will be coaxed into watching a lot more movies like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, because I'm sure there'll be more. There'll be Goosebumps reboots or sequels, and other little horror properties. Things that we talk about, like even more so talking about stuff that we grew up with. I'd love to see a reboot of the Ghostbumps show, like
Oh
they
yeah.
kind of do with like the Creep Show on Shutter.
And they
Or
did
Are
with
You
Are You
Afraid of the
Afraid of the
Dark?
Dark? I mean, they came
Yeah.
out with that. I don't know if I think there might be a season two of that. I watched season one, which I thought was pretty decent. So it's like, all this stuff is kind of being reinvented now, because there is a market for it. So I think Goosebumps again. I'm going through and reading some of the books for maybe something that will be coming out here on the channel in a few weeks. So it's like there is such a rich universe there that I think maybe I know there is, especially on Twitter, there's kind of a little bit of love for those Goosebump books. A lot of horror writers have a little
Oh, yeah,
show.
I mean, like, the books were great. Like, I don't think there's a kid in the 90s or, even early 2000s who didn't at least at one point pick up and read a Goosebumps book.
Yeah.
I really liked the choose your own adventure ones. I thought those
Okay.
were a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Because like I would pick up the ones that revolved mostly around like monsters. So like Werewolf of Fever Swamp was one that I read. I also love the movie for that one. But it's just one of those things where it's like I like the choose your own adventure ones where it's like, you start on this page and it's like go to page 65. And if you choose this, go to page 76 or go to page 100 and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
that was really a neat concept. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, and there's so much to choose from there. I don't know how many how many books there are total in terms of the Goosebump collection, but there's such a variation of different things. Some of it's very basic, some of it's a little more in depth. It's a lot of fun, even to play in that space and to kind of get a grain of an idea to be like, hey, this can be kind of transferred into more of an adult themed horror. There's so much in there. It's so expansive. So it's like for that to kind of come out maybe in like, I don't know, 10 episode series of something.
Mhm.
I don't see that not being picked up by a streaming service because I think people would absolutely love that.
Yeah, and then, like, I mean, you're already playing up with, like, they got classic characters like Slappy the Dummy and stuff, which could definitely ride off the coattails of that Chucky series and everything going on. So,
Definitely.
yeah, I could easily see a bunch of, 90s, early 2000s kids going crazy for that kind of stuff right now. So,
I know,
like,
because there would be a market for the kids, and much like how Hocus Pocus too, there's gonna be kids that are gonna wanna see that, and there's gonna be adults who grew up with that. So it's like, I know I know we're a different set here. We're horror community, horror family right here on the channel. So it maybe doesn't necessarily apply to us, but there are so many people that are my age that I went to school with that are way more open now about loving horror. Where it's like, oh, I didn't know like going to school with these kids that they enjoyed Are You Afraid of the Dark? Because I think kind of coming up in that space, it wasn't really like. Oh, I love horror. It was still kind of looked at, you don't wear your Friday the 13th t-shirt to school at that point, for a lot of people. So I think there is such a huge community growing up to want to play in that space and want to revisit it. So it's like having Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, anything like that out there as a new property. I think there is a huge market from 5 to 45. Everyone wants to kind of eat up that space.
no, I agree. I think that there's definitely it's just getting bigger and it's just a lot of fun. I think like we seem to be, and I mean, like other generations obviously love horror, like there's the 80s generation stuff, but I think like, with just how everything is just getting so like popularized with like merch and, figurines and things like that, there's so much more of a space and a community to play in with social media that the connection is just a lot stronger now. And you
Yeah.
can really market and get through a lot more of that.
I mean, the universe for horror, the horror community is so expansive that now we've reached a landmark here on the Sunday Scaries. We are in our official episode 10 here. Right here,
Yeah.
you're enjoying it with your cup of coffee.
Yep.
And we are here. every Sunday morning we've reached our 10th mark here on the Sunday Scaries. Dylan, how are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. I mean, like this has been a very awesome and hectic couple of months for us. It's just like, the milestones we've hit on the channel alone have been great. We're up to 40 subs. I mean, I knew it was just a couple episodes ago I was saying they were at 18 and now we're at 40
Yeah,
and we're
we had
moving
a big
up.
jump.
We did, and I think like people are starting to respond to the content. We love that. I mean, I really enjoy looking forward to these weekly news segments because it's like I keep up with this shit just on my own anyway. So it's like we'll text each other, but now we actually have like a set time every week we can sit down and just talk about it and just kind
Yeah.
of get it out there. So yeah, the
And
fact that we've made it to 10 episodes of this so far is great. Same with Splattercast, we're getting close. I think what are we on, episode 9 next? So we're getting
yeah, I think we are actually. So
yeah, I think
we're moving right along.
yeah.
And the big thing here is like these different segments that we do, they're always fun. But it's like the discourse that ensues out of those topics is really what I enjoy the most, where it's like, we start with one topic and we end on a completely different roundabout way, and then we have to bring it back is always the fun of doing these things, because again, this community, this horror community here is so expansive that one thought leads into another thought. So it's like just those transitions are so easy, so you end up covering so much just in one topic. I mean, um, I don't know if we've ever spoke about this on the Sunday Scaries, but this is very much a Dylan brainchild, where he kind of came to me and said, "Hey, what if we do a Sunday episode and we call it the Sunday Scaries?" And it's like, I'm here for it. Anytime we get to talk more horror, I am for it. So that kind of this honestly. A little inside baseball here was supposed to be more so 30 to 40 minutes. And I mean, right now we're talking, haven't even got into it. We're 13 minutes in. So, we quickly realized that this is not going to be a short little tidbits episode thing. This is really taking on a life of its own, and is honestly, Splattercast every 2 weeks. This is every week. So it's kind of like this is a very big mainstay for us.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, I think that it's just nice to be able to touch base. I mean, it keeps the content coming out on the channel every week. So like, even if we've been really hitting it hard at the reviews, like there's just been a lot of content coming out. That's been nice, and a lot of trailer stuff and everything. So like that's been great. But like, just having this every week is just a very therapeutic, very fun. It's always something to look forward to. Like, I mean, I really enjoy it. Um, yeah, that term was actually something that my therapist hit me with a few months ago, where she was just like, I was always talking about, because I before, I mean, when we first started this channel, when we got things going again, I was in a job I didn't really like. So I was always just like counting down the time of like, oh my God, when am I going to get to, you know, like how many hours do I have before I have to go back to that place? And that was unhealthy. And she
Yeah.
coined that term as the Sunday Scaries. And you can look and see other podcasts and stuff where they just talk. It's supposed to decompress you, get you ready for Monday, let you know, hey, it's not so bad. But the little play on words was just why I was just like, yeah, I think we should do some weekly news stuff and everything. But honestly, it's like, yeah, even though I came up with the concept, I mean, Luke shepherds this every week. This is his baby. So like, I do a lot of that. I mean, currently right now he does a bulk of our editing because my computer can only do so much, but we're getting there. We're going to get around the corner here, the hump, pretty soon. So you'll see an uptick in more content for sure. But yeah, I mean, like this, he does this every week. He does the thumbnails, he does all of this, he gets the stories going. So always got to give this man a good pat on the back for doing that, because
I appreciate it, but we are very much a team, and you know,
absolutely.
I made that little joke earlier at the start where Prey will be our security blanket, and I honestly feel like being, again, I keep mentioning it, in this horror community, this horror family, that this kind of Sunday Scaries here, to play in this space for an hour and a half or whatever. It's therapeutic for us as well as hopefully people who listen to it. This is very much a security blanket. I think horror topics in general for the horror community are that security blanket. If you're at work at a job you don't want to be at, and you get on Twitter and you find a little article about the next Halloween film, or um, what their Prey reviews are going to be. That moment in time, that 3 minutes, that little break in the bathroom that you get is very much a security blanket. You feel like you're at home no matter where you're at. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this horror genre, the love, the community that everyone has here, where this is everyone's security blanket. It's a space we want to play in, it's a space we want to be in. It's something we all thrive in, and to see that growing is such a beautiful thing.
It is. And I appreciate everybody on Twitter as well. We're up to 40 followers on there as well. So it's like, the conversations that are always keeping things going. It's nice to just pop on there, and just talk to people. So it's like it's great. Like, I mean, this has really been nice. I'm glad that people are kind of, embracing us and letting us play in this space. And, we're just doing our best to make sure that our content is just, upping in quality, and we can bring something here that, and really kind of carve out our own little section and just say, hey, like, we just love talking about horror movies. So 10 episodes, here's to 1,000 more. Let's hope we keep it going, and maybe we'll get there.
Let's raise our glasses, Dylan.
Absolutely.
And so that brings us, the 10th episode of the Sunday Scaries marks our choice for Kill of the Week. Yes, here we go, Jason X, which is a very conflicting in quality, but not many franchises actually make it to that 10th mark. I mean, I guess Halloween in a sense did, but it's never really marked Halloween 10. So I think Friday 13th really only has that temple, I believe.
I think so. I think they're the only ones that can like definitively say they get to 10, because I think you get to like about 6 or 7 with some of these franchises, and then they rebrand or they
Yeah.
reboot. So you kind
Retcon.
of, you don't really get to that like 10 spot, but like, I mean, Friday the 13th just kept it going. Like they didn't see any reason to stop it, And I will say, Jason X was one that I didn't care for growing up very much, but like, as I've gotten older and been able to rewatch it, the tongue-in-cheek nature of it, it's a fun movie. I mean, you got David Cronenberg, right at the start of the
Yeah.
movie. There's you can
Big
tell this
cast.
movie's not taking itself too seriously.
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
were in on the joke, I feel.
yeah,
When you reanimate Jason almost in the third act, I mean, I feel like we know, what kind of film this is.
oh yeah, and I mean, just the fact that like we're going to, you know, the 10th film and the ninth film being what it was, like that, it's just nice to come back to the
Yeah.
basics a little bit, even though they
What were
shoot
you
him
gonna
into
do after
space.
Jason Goes to Hell, really? So,
Yeah, that one's just like, I'm okay with people switching up the formula in a lot of regards for some of this stuff, but that's just one of those ones where I'm just like, dude, this doesn't even feel like a Friday the 13th movie
yeah, we
anymore.
take a turn. I mean,
Hmm.
it is just on another level there. So, I mean, like, I feel like at that point they're like, let's just play into it. Let's do something completely crazy. And in some sense, I think Jason X does work. I mean, like, I don't think this is one of those films where it's like, hey, Halloween 3 is one of the greatest films of all time. It might be, but so I mean,
I
Jason X, that tongue-in-cheek nature, like you said, I mean, it owns it, I feel. And I'll say, watching this as a kid, reanimated Jason was one of the most badass things I had seen
Oh
uh,
yeah,
on my
Uber
screen.
Jason, like I still pray and hope every day. I get down on my knees and I say, whatever Lord, deity, God, whatever you worship, I pray to him and I say, hey, please, NECA, sort out this shit. I want my part 8, I want my part 9, and I want both looks from part 10 for my Jason NECAs. I want the Uber Jason and I want the one before he goes that way. And,
See,
I hope they figure it
that's
out.
where I see you. You strip off all your clothes, you go up to the treehouse, and you say, "Lord Payman, please
Yes.
give me my NECA, give
Yep.
me
And
my NECA, Jason X."
and my
And
wife comes out with her piano wire and cuts her head off and
there we
climbs
go.
all over the ceiling. Oh, that's gonna be a great episode when we can talk about that one. I
Oh, what a
fucking love
fun
that
time! What
movie.
a fun time! I have to revisit that film. I
You
haven't in
do.
quite a few years. I was just thinking about that. Will tie into one of our topics here in probably 20 minutes when we get to it. But
Okay.
now let's hop in to the Jason X kill.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, just
He
at this
raises
point
up
in the
your
movie, they brought him on the ship, what, like fucking maybe 15 minutes ago.
Yeah,
And
he was completely frozen.
if this, did they put something in him
No, they
to
were
kind
just
of,
basically I think they were just defrosting him. They did the
okay.
thing where the things run over him, the little reanimation little ants, I think they call them,
Hmm.
to kinda fix him up a
Nanites.
little bit, and then he was just kinda or just sitting there thawing out.
Yeah, and I think that this is definitely, you talk to any Friday the 13th fan, not only is this the quintessential best kill of this film, but I would say it's one of, I'd say, always popping up in that top 10 spot for Jason kills,
Just
because
absolutely vicious.
it's vicious, it's creative. I mean, look at that, the freeze, dry ice, throwing her in there and then just smashing the shit out of her face. Like, that's creativity. That's the
Yeah.
stuff that I like here. It is a part of that tongue-in-cheek nature
It
that we
makes me
get.
want one of those red, white, and blue popsicles.
Oh my god. Yeah. So it's like, it's just it's nice to see, we're so far along. We've seen Jason kill people in so many different ways, but like, this is, a really fresh way to do it. Like, yeah, like, let's fucking do it. Like, there's some genuine thought put into this kill, and I think that's why it stands the test of time
Yeah,
and
and
why it's the bright spot.
it wasn't that kind of basic thing that we usually see from Jason. And this is one of the things where I talk about, if we're going to see a sequel or we're going to see a different theme in a franchise, we need to make it count. And this is one of the kills. I don't think maybe Jason X all of them are like this, but this one definitely is like, when else are we ever going to see this kill? It makes sense for it to be in the future, because it's like, when else is someone going to be thrown into the dry ice or anything like that,
Yeah,
and to freeze and then smash someone's face. So it's like that kill is honestly probably one of the strongest in the franchise. It's one of the most unique ones, and you can
absolutely.
really pick it out. But it's like that happens so early on, and a lot of the other ones that I can think of are just pretty basic and kind of really heavy in CGI. That it's like, I think maybe they kind of use one of their strongest kills at the forefront of the film.
Yeah, no. And I think, like, with a movie that they kind of, they kind of ran the concept out pretty quickly, I would say. It's like, we kind of get the space, and then they just kind of, it's standard Jason affair at that point until he really gets his upgrade. And but even then, it's still just like, okay, now he's just even more unkillable to an
Yeah,
extent. So it's like, I think that, they did the best with what they could do with what they had. But still, it's just like, yes, that's the kind of creativity I'm looking for. Unfortunately, they kind of lean heavier into the whole virtual reality stuff, and
yeah.
they kind of do a lot
I
of
think it's
that,
a
which
downfall here.
it does. Because I mean, like, this is the kind of stuff I wanted to see more of. Like, let's see some more stuff, that, like, situations that Jason isn't normally put into. And I know he wouldn't normally be put into virtual reality, but like, it's just kind of like, okay, we don't have to go that route with it. Like, I like the chemicals. I like him being able to be in a setting where, you could even had him, like, could you imagine if they had like guns like the Colonial Marines or something like that, and he
Yeah,
just, like, use something like that, or like a saw or something, with just like some futuristic upgrades. Like, let him go crazy with some of that stuff. But
yeah. And
again,
honestly, I do kind of like that bookend of the scene where after he smashes her face, he goes and grabs a machete, kind of like back to his old ways.
mhm,
But I would have loved to see a little more creativeness through some of these kills, because that one is just so unique. And, you don't see anything like that, I don't think, in any of the other films. I can't really think of anything like that, other than Terminator 2. But, you don't really see anything like that happening in any other horror film or any film in general. So I thought that was just such a unique kill, to kind of bring it through, of her looking through her microscope and then looking back and he's gone. And then we do that classic jump scare of him popping up. I think it's so well done from beginning to end. It really does build that tension, because, going through this, you kind of do those cutbacks of what's going out, what else is going on in the ship. And then she keeps turning her head thinking he's moving and he's not. And then finally he does. I do think it's just so well done.
oh, absolutely. So I say, let's dive into this a little bit more specifically. So obviously, like, you were just talking about the cutbacks. I mean, the brutality too, because you got to
Very
give it to Kane
aggressive.
Hodder. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
this is one of Kane Hodder came in. What was that, 7? Is
Yeah.
when he
And like
first popped on screen.
this right here, him just holding her, you can tell this is a real fight. It feels real.
And that's when I think the brutality of Kane Hodder comes in. That's why I think, he's one of the only people to play Jason multiple times. But you can see that he really respects it. He gets into the zone. And that's a great effect, man. Like this
Yep.
whole like how they show you, because they don't cut away. They
Yep.
don't cut away from that freeze. I want to know how they did that. I
Yeah, I
think there's
got
probably a segment in Crystal Lake Memories, but like I don't remember it. But like that's a really awesome kill.
I love the angle there where we're watching her face freeze. It's not just we dunk her head and she pops back up in her, very like in the original Halloween 2, where he's dunking her head in the hot water and she's just
Yeah.
coming back up.
Just back
Which
and forth, back
yeah,
and forth.
which I think that does work in a sense, but I like that this is kind of differentiated in a sense where we're actually with her as her face freezes, and
Oh
then
yeah.
it's like he could have just left it there, but then again, you go back to the brutality of just smashing her face into pieces right there, so there is no coming back for her.
Not at
And
all.
then just the red, that basically looks like blood and snow almost, where that
Mhm.
mixture there I think is so effective, really sets the tone. I don't know, maybe gets your hopes up for what else could be in this film, and then it kind of you don't really it doesn't realize its full potential, I don't think.
Yeah, they just kind of just go back to the old well, the drawing board with the machete and everything. Which, of course, I love Jason with his machete. I mean, like I've got him posed back there. I think I've got four. What I got? One, two, three, four. Yeah, five. Okay, I've got five of the NECAs back there, and three of them are posed with machetes. So I mean, like it's just that's his signature weapon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like just like the hockey mask, that is what he's synonymous with. But so you want to see it, but yes, I mean, in the setting, giving that the anticipation, like let's see something more. I want to see a
Yeah.
little bit more of that creativity.
But he does give us one of the strongest kills in the franchise. We are so sorry. Let's pay our respects to Miss Adrian Thomas Hart. Very
Alrighty.
rough.
Oh yeah, what a way to go! But
I mean,
definitely infamous for sure. And to
yeah,
be that
very memorable.
actress, to say, like, yeah, I might have been in one of the weaker Friday the 13th movies, but yeah, my kill was fucking badass.
See, and that's what you hang your hat on. I mean, like you go into any other auditions, you say, "Hey, did you see Jason X?" And they'll say no, and then you'll say, "Well, I brought the film reel of my face being disintegrated on a table after it's frozen by Jason Voorhees," and they'll say, "Miss, you have the part. You have what we're looking for here.
We got
That's
it.
it."
This you got it all.
All right, well,
Fucking
let's get into some actual news for this week. Lots of different things happening in the world of horror as usual.
oh yeah.
Get your flamethrowers ready. The Alien franchise is returning, but to TV this time. Creator Noah Hawley reportedly finished all the scripts for his Alien based TV series, with filming slated to begin next year. The series will take place in the not so distant future and on Earth this time, serving as a sort of prequel to the original 1979 film. With Ridley Scott still having his hands in the pot, Fede Alvarez reportedly directing a standalone film, and now this TV series, the Alien franchise, is pumping out more properties than a queen alien pumps out eggs. Will this be something fans can latch onto and be a welcomed addition to the Alien franchise? I don't know. We're expanding here after our high again of Prey. We're going to mention it. We are seeing that Predator can be a viable franchise. I know Aliens probably had a little more success and some more properties coming out than Predator has, but I don't know. Do you think this can be something that's viable for television? I don't know really what aspect they're going to play on here because I believe they said like Wayland Yutani is not going to be the actual corporation. This is going to be predating that. I think they're focusing on a different part of I guess I don't know. He said different area, so it's going to be a totally made up company that is going to be unique to the TV series. So we're not really getting that property, that reoccurring property that we see in a lot of the Alien franchises.
That I didn't know, and that is a little concerning because I
Yeah,
think that this franchise, just like the Predator franchise, has been kind of in a messy state for a while now.
yeah,
Like you got the first one, it's a great one. The second one is an all-time classic as well. The third one, I believe, is pretty underrated. Um, and then the fourth one ain't great. And then you kind of And then you have the AVP films, which you know my thoughts on that. If you've checked out our Prey review, or even just, I'm sure I brought it up a couple of times already. And then you get Prometheus, which, if I haven't said it already, I really enjoy. I like Prometheus a lot. I think that they have a lot of great ideas in there. And then Alien Covenant, I did not enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like they didn't leave off on the best note. Now, I guess a little side question I want to pose is, what do you prefer, Alien Covenant or The Predator? What would you say?
Yowza.
Yeah, that's
I
a
mean, like,
rough
I
one.
love Predator as a creature. I
Hmm.
prefer, but I'm gonna say probably Alien Covenant. I'm probably gonna have to go with.
I think so too. I think it's a little bit more rewatchable. I mean, there's
Yeah.
still moments, but it just really felt like the franchise was kind of aimless for a
It's
little
going in a
while
very
here.
different direction, it seems like,
Hmm.
than what we're looking at, Jim Cameron's Aliens and then looking at Alien Covenant and where that's going. It's like very different progression of, "Oh, wow, this is where we've come to." You know what I mean? Like, it just feels way different. Whereas, like, the Predator, or Predator in general kinda jumps all over the place where it's like,
Yeah, and I will say, even though the predator creature has been pretty consistent throughout. I mean, we have different versions and different variants, which is fine. I can accept that with them. But like they still hold true to their morals and kind of what the creature is as a whole.
yeah,
The Alien franchise, they've just kind of like thrown a lot of continuity all the way around. Like
yeah.
sometimes it does things like a Covenant for me with the chest burster that came out and looked like a full grown alien, just tiny. It was fucked up. Like I'm like,
It was
no, that's
odd.
not at all how they look. Like it just and it's a big criticism, and I've heard it a lot, is the gestational period
Yeah.
for the face hugger to baby xenomorph and then to a large xenomorph. It's all over the place. There is no consistency. The first two films, and even three, I'd say the first three films have a consistent base for the most part. But then once you get to four and then the AVP films, it's just all over the place.
It really
And
just
they
feels like, "Hey, how did we feel that day?" "Hey, it's gonna take, 2 hours," or, "It's gonna take 10 minutes," where it's like,
yeah.
okay, there's you never know what you're going to expect, where it's like going into that first Alien movie, you're like, "Oh, okay, well, it's gonna take some time here," and then even looking at, like, AVP, it happens almost instantly, and I
Mhm.
I know there's a narrative out there that the queen
It's
alien
done
was
on
on.
purpose, yeah,
Yeah,
because they want to hunt them, and I can even get behind that. I can accept that. That's fine. They're a hive mind, you can kinda engineer them. I think the predators are smart enough to do that, but, like, it's just when you get to these movies that are supposed to be prequels and kind of, paying
yeah.
homage, all of this is supposed to lead into that first film, and you're not even paying attention to the consistency or the lore that you set up in that first film. It's just kind of
Yeah,
like,
'cause
well,
I know we went and saw Alien Covenant in the theater, and the next morning we just had so much discourse of so many inconsistent issues that we had in terms of trying to compare Alien Covenant to the original Alien, and it's like, this one here, this TV series, I don't know where it's like it's taking place so far in the past, predating the original Alien. I feel like it will be a different feel if it's taking place on Earth. I feel like there may not be that many inconsistencies because we may not be seeing reoccurring themes that we've seen in that original Alien film or even Aliens, where it's like maybe that this is going to be not necessarily a full creature, a xenomorph that we're used to, or even the face huggers in that sense, where it's going to be a very different variation of
so it's just
something.
Prometheus light.
Yeah, well, and that's where it's like, I from what I had heard, I believe this is supposed to take place 70 years from like right now. Um, so we're talking like not that far into the future, but predating the original Alien. So it's like, and I don't know if you're familiar. The creator here has done
Legion
Fargo,
and
Fargo, the
Fargo. Yeah.
yeah the TV series. Which the first season it's got conflicting quality for me, where it's like I enjoyed the first season. I believe I've seen 3 seasons of it, and I know I enjoyed the first season. The second season, there's some things I liked, some things I did not like, and I believe the third season I was not a huge fan of. I have to go back to pick them all out, but I think that's how it went for me. So looking at this, I know he can tell a story that's like a grounded story. I'm just curious to see how he's going to mix those sci-fi elements into it and see how that's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, this is going to be something I need to see a trailer. I need to see more from. You know, I don't know how I like that, especially if they're still the intent is to tie this into, the first couple films. I just feel like, this is a series that they need to do kind of like, and I'm gonna say it, they need to do like what they did with Prey. Go back to basics, have it set anywhere and maybe have something set in between Alien and Aliens,
Yeah,
while Ripley's floating off into space before they even find her. Maybe someone else stumbles onto LV-426, before the colony gets there. And they're there. And it's like, there's a lot of stuff you can play with. Give us a smaller story. That's what I'm kind of hoping this Fede Alvarez film is going to be, because we don't really have much information on that other than that he is working on a project
yeah,
for it
yeah.
and
I
he's going to
haven't.
be directing it. So
Yeah, I haven't read any information on that one either. But like for me, I feel like this is kind of there's going to be a luxury here where we look at Prey, where it takes place so far previously before that first film, where it's like it's so far removed from the time that anything that happens here, you if you don't like it, you can pretend it doesn't exist because it's probably not going to touch on anything in the films that already exist. So like here, if we're going to do it so early before the original Alien film, I feel like you can't mess with those originals too much. You can make it feel different, and because the thing is we're still getting there. We're not there yet. So
yes,
it's like
but again, it bothers me that I'm gonna watch Alien and Aliens, and they're gonna talk about these xenomorphs like this is the first time humans have ever come into contact with these things.
yeah.
And I think like, it just kind of sets to that point of like, oh, to what end? Really? I mean, like, what are we trying to accomplish here? I mean, like, for Predator, it makes sense because like the lore of them is that they're hunters, and I can definitely believe that they've, been coming down for centuries and they've been
Yeah.
doing this and that we can get away with something like that. But with Alien, it just to me, I feel like there would be like just that the world that they previously established, I feel like there would be a little bit more to it. And then again, does this mean that this does this is Prometheus still canon? Are they still going with that? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll eat my words, of course, just like I said when we were looking at Prey news and trailers and stuff. When it comes out, if it's great, I'll eat my words. I'm just a little trepidatious about it. I just think
Yeah.
that maybe I've been burned too many times, and I'm just like now that I kind of know that because I was under the impression talking about a series that this would kind of take place within the timeline somewhere that would make a little more sense to me. But like having it set in almost modern day, like you said, about 70 years past. So it's going to be future, but not like deep future, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, I don't know. Um, eh, but
But
I'm excited that it opens the door for more xenomorphs. Like I'm here for it. I'll watch it. I'm excited, but like, it's just I have to have my reservations. My
yeah,
walls
but
are up a little.
and this is me spitballing right now, but I feel like this isn't gonna be hey, we're living in, a neighborhood and I'm going to work here and I work with xenomorphs and to get out. I don't think that's what this case
No,
is.
I don't I
Um,
hope it's not that. But yeah,
um,
I don't think it's gonna be that, but it is
I
it's
don't
yeah.
think I don't think that there is going to. I would be very surprised if there's an actual xenomorph in here. You don't like that You don't like
I
that
don't
idea?
like that either. I don't think I like this at all because then it's like again, it's just back to that Prometheus light stuff where it's like, so what the fuck is Prometheus then? Like, what's
But
up with all that?
but
Like,
see, and like this is where I feel like and again, I don't know. We could see a xenomorph in here. I don't know where this series is going to go. But what I feel more so like this could be is more the political aspects of maybe someone working at whatever. It's not Wayland Utani, but something
it
like that.
could become Wayland Utani.
Yeah, and where it's like, just a worker there realizing what they are working on. Very kind of like how Alien Resurrection was when she stumbles upon
The
the lab
clones.
and all these random mutations happening where they don't exist, where they didn't really pan out. Where it's like, maybe something like that happens, and it's like, I'm not into what we're doing here, and I want to blow the cover off of this, or something happens and we have this we've engineered this creature and it can birth something if we put it into something else. And then you kind of do a body horror aspect of it. Those are things that I feel like are probably going to be themes more so into this, where it's like, we're not going to pay to have a xenomorph every episode. You know what I mean? Like, I
No,
don't
I
think,
get that. I'm just saying, like, which I mean, still, you go practical effects and you do it right, you could definitely have a xenomorph every episode, but you play it right, you keep it to the shadows, you keep things, a little more hidden until the ending of the series, especially if we're just talking about 8 episodes here.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I just think like, it's I'm gonna watch it, of course. A trailer could come out and I could feel completely different about it. But just like as far as the news goes and as far as what we know so far, I'm just a little bit like, okay. I mean, they really gotta work their way into it to kind of get me on their side for it. Because again, it's just like I just think back to Alien and Aliens, where it's just like in Alien, that was the first time the company had come into contact with these things. The whole reason why Ash, um, you know, betrays them and does that is orders from the company to be like, we want that, bring that back.
yeah,
Like that's why he does what he does. So again, it's just like, would it make sense to me to have, even if it's decades before, to have them just be like, oh, wait, we don't know about this, or even like the highest level of person doesn't know that these things exist or that this is a thing that we could run into. I
yeah.
mean, it just feels like
But
they're going to have to do a lot of, they're going to have to lay a lot of groundwork that I don't have the confidence that they can do.
but we as human beings in this universe right here, and not venturing out into space. We don't know everything that's being created in a sense, so we're not privy to that. So it's like when we're dealing with space and how expansive that universe has become, I find it to be believable that we don't know that this exists, where another company may know this exists, especially if we're playing this far previously to the first film, where it's like, oh, maybe this happened, didn't pan out, it's been shelved, someone else has been working on it, and now this is coming to the forefront, and this is the first time this company is finding out this exists. So I don't find it that far fetched in that sense, I guess.
I am an omnipotent God who can view these stories from the luxury of my living room with my 4K player. So
Of
you
course.
must appease me, Luke. I'm not talking about real life here, okay? I'm talking about my fucking alien movies. No, I get what you're saying. Am I being a bit harsh? I maybe. I'm just gonna have to leave it on. I'm gonna have to see where it goes, and I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
see a trailer. I hope that I'll eat my words and I'll love this thing when it comes out.
Yeah.
But again, it could just be just my walls are up a little bit just because of where we've been recently with the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
Again, just kind of like how I was with Prey, but Prey I love and I'm excited and I'm excited to watch it again. I'll probably watch it again this afternoon.
And I
Um,
mean, just reading this little blurb that we did here. I mean, basically weapon of choice. I mean, if you don't like the TV series, maybe the Fede
the Fede
Alvarez thing.
Alvarez movie will
Yeah,
work for you. Yeah,
where it's like
so
they're churning out a decent amount of properties already from this franchise. So it looks like we're gonna have
a
several
couple of
additions.
different
Hopefully one of
options.
them's a home run, but we'll have to see.
Me too. I really hope so.
All right, let's move on to another established property here. With David Gordon Green's Michael Myers saga coming to an end this Halloween, he will be moving on to another established horror franchise, and the cast is growing. Anne Dowd from Hereditary fame will be joining Leslie Odom Jr. and returning original star Ellen Burstyn. Sorry. This sequel will be the first in a planned trilogy, much like the Halloween franchise. Not much is currently known about the film other than a 2023 release date and a My Plot synopsis that reads Odom Jr. will play the father of a possessed child. Desperate for help, he tracks down Miss Burstyn's character. With the conflicting quality of the Halloween franchise and the high regard for The Exorcist in the horror community, does resurrecting this well respected film seem like the right move? I don't know about this one. Like, this is, I've watched The Exorcist a handful of times. This is one of those, The Exorcist for me is one of those films where I feel a little, I have to be mentally prepared for it. I feel a little exhausted after watching it. But after all the accolades this film has racked up, and being a horror film, I feel like this is very near and dear to a lot of horror fans' hearts. So it's like kind of more so adding to The Shining or The Thing, where it's like some of these are on very untouchable ground. You don't want to mess with them too much. So I feel like Exorcist kind of falls in that realm where it's, if you want to do it, you better make sure that there's quality there.
I agree. I have never been somebody who's a massive defender of The Exorcist. Like, I think that the first movie is great. It's a classic. I've only seen it, I think, one time. And then that was a while ago. I think I watched it with my cousins in Georgia at one point. Because I remember I watched that and The Shining pretty close together. And I think The Shining left a bigger mark on me. So that's kind of why maybe I don't have the biggest love for it, but I got to rewatch it again. I have heard that, is it The Exorcist 2 or 3? That's pretty good too.
I
Uh,
think a lot of people have a high regard for three, but I don't know
I think so.
necessarily if it's like, I haven't seen it. I've only seen the original.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's like one of those things where, hey, three is a fun movie. It's terrible, but it's a fun movie. So I can't
Yeah,
tell if
or if it
that's the
actually
love
has
for
some substance,
Yeah,
like, um, so that's going to be something we'll have to dive into and find out for ourselves.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think again, um, David Gordon Green. I didn't love. I don't love what he's been doing with Halloween. Neither of us do. But it is one of those things where it's like, this franchise isn't nearly as protected or coveted by me
Yeah.
as Halloween is. So maybe I will like his take on this a little bit more. Maybe I'll be a little more open minded to it, because there's a lot of people that like Halloween and Halloween Kills and the take that they're going for. Somebody who is talking about the Predator franchise. I forget the channel. I'm sorry, but I was just listening to their video and they were literally saying, "I love Halloween and Halloween Kills, or
Yeah.
2018 and Halloween Kills." Like, I think that that's a really great take. So it's like, it does have its fans. Um, so I don't know. It's just going to be one of those things where maybe if I take my reservations and protections off, that maybe if he's handling a franchise, um, that isn't as close to me, that I might like it. I think he's a competent director. Again, I just don't really like the decisions he's made with the characters and the stuff that I love. So it's like, I think, I'm here to let him get another shot. But if we go through this trilogy and I'm feeling the same way, then I say don't give him another franchise. I say
Yeah.
let him do his own thing. If he wants to keep playing in horror, let him make some originals. Let him do his own thing for a little while, because I'd like to see that in general. I mean, I'm always going to be here for somebody to do their own thing and bring a story that they have on their own to fruition. But yeah, I'm curious to see where I'm going to land with this trilogy.
Yeah, because I have to look at the timeline here, but I believe he was given The Exorcist after 2018 and before Halloween Kills had come out.
I don't know. I thought it was just after Kills,
Is it? Oh,
because I
after
feel like
Kills had come out or after it had
we haven't
completed
been talking.
shooting?
I think Halloween Kills had come out just after it, because we got to remember Halloween Kills still made a good bit of money.
Yeah,
I mean, even though it was on a streaming service, but that's kind of in that gray area of forgiveness,
but
because we were still kind of in the pandemic with that.
yeah,
And
it,
Blumhouse really likes their working relationship with him.
yeah,
So,
and I mean, like, regardless of what the timeline was, looking at 2018, no matter how we feel about it, it's held in more so high regard for a lot of people, a
oh
general
yeah,
audience.
and it made a fuck
Um,
ton of money. So
yeah,
that's
so
that's kind of what
it's
they're
like,
looking at.
regardless of if he got it shortly after Halloween Kills, where it's more, I don't know, there's a different discourse there. It's very diverse. You either people like it or people hate it, So there's a difference in quality there. So it's like, whether it came out before or after, I feel like those wheels were probably in motion to already give David Gordon Green The Exorcist, regardless of the how whatever Halloween Kills quality wise was going to produce. Um, you know, This one, I think there isn't as many masters to please here, where Halloween is such a you know, the community loves Halloween. You
Oh
have to
yeah.
get that story absolutely right. The characters there are so iconic. Where The Exorcist, has been dormant for a little bit. I mean, like we've had different properties come out for The Exorcist, but I don't hear as much discourse about it, or people, holding it so near and dear to their heart to be like, oh no, they didn't do this right or that. So it's like I think there is a little more room here to play, in terms of making it your own thing. But at that point, uh, I don't understand why. Like reading the synopsis here, it really seems just like we're gonna bring in an old character to for the audience to latch onto, where it's like at this point it sounds so generic of like what else could we really do here other than looking to someone who's dealt with this issue, for guidance. And at that point, do you really need to expand upon the universe? Can't you just make a standalone film maybe in that universe rather than creating another trilogy that ties into that original film? I mean, like, David Gordon Green seems like he needs that. He wants that already built in audience in a sense, rather than creating from the ground up a new horror element, a new horror franchise. He needs something to latch onto to be like, okay, now I can play in these guidelines. And that, again, yes, there aren't as many masters to please, but you can definitely take a turn for the worst here.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if I can put that all on him. I feel like a lot of that has to come from the studio level because, the studio, it's an established property. They want that built-in audience because they know that it's going to print money. They know that
Yeah,
they're going to get some money at least from the first one. So it's like maybe that's the angle with it because, there was that article from the writers of The Night House, but you're going in a very different direction for a Halloween film. And that didn't get made, although I think it's a great idea and I think it's something that they really should have pursued. Just too different. Just not gonna put butts in seats if people start finding out kind of how that's gonna work. Even though, hindsight being 2020, it would probably be regarded as a much more loved film as
yeah,
time went on. They're about, we want to set that weekend record for, oh, we're the studio that, gave you Halloween 2018 and that killed it at the box office. And now we want to do it again with The Exorcist and all this stuff. They want that. They don't necessarily see it as let's do something different with the franchise.
yeah.
They're not in for it for that. So like I want to say it's that, but again, it could be he could just need that jumping off point. He could want that established audience. In which case, it's just kind of like, ooh, that's tough ground to play on because, I mean, he's already been kicked down, at least in general, I'd say by Halloween fans like twice now. It's like, do you want to do that with Exorcist fans? Do you want to do that? Because like, I'm curious to see how many people show up out of the woodwork for this one because the franchise has been so dormant. Because
Yeah.
once we start getting closer to this, like, you're going to start seeing those essays, you're going to start seeing, posts and videos. Suddenly, everybody's going to be a massive Exorcist fan.
Well,
And yeah,
and that's what I'm curious about. Whereas in 2022, or when this is released in 2023, what kind of clout does The Exorcist really hold in terms of a general audience here? Because it's like, I feel like David Gordon Green, when you say the director that brought you Halloween 2018, holds a little more clout for a general audience to be like, oh yeah, Michael Myers. I remember he slashed people, he slit throats, all this stuff. I might want to go see that, not necessarily the Exorcist title itself. It's like, if you just put The Exorcist Part 2 out there in 2023 versus The Conjuring Part 5, I think people are probably going to go see, Conjuring a little more, or inclined to go see The Conjuring because it's more so an established franchise that's been at the forefront for a little while. So I'm curious to see like what this kind of holds here, where I feel like David Gordon Green could have pretty much done anything that he wanted, but again, we're going back to an already established franchise that I don't know necessarily needs a sequel to. Because, again, the success of something like The Conjuring, I feel like there is a market for a unique David Gordon Green property that hasn't been seen before that del, you know, dives into the possession angle. and you don't have to tie it anywhere, and we don't have to bring back reoccurring characters or anything like that. Just make it unique to yourself. So I'm curious. It's like, I was curious to see what David Gordon Green does post Halloween, but we're diving into another established franchise here. And I mean, I'll check it out, see what he does here. But I'm ready for a unique take from David Gordon Green, not an established property. I would love to see this guy play in the horror realm. Maybe an cleanse your palate, do something completely new here. Bring us something unique to your own, not an established franchise.
I agree, and that's where I think that's probably the best spot for him. But it looks like we're gonna have to wait another, 4 or 5 years to see where
Yep.
that one goes. I mean, I don't know how quickly they're planning on shooting these ones out, but hopefully
He's
we won't have
committed.
another pandemic to kind of
Oh
bridge
gosh.
that time there. So let's hope.
You never know.
Hmm.
All right, beauty is only skin deep, and that's where the horror lies, at least according to James Wan. Screen Gems has acquired the film Cosmetic, an idea that came from Wan and Ingrid Bisu, the atomic monster duo responsible for 2021's *Malignant*. The film is set in the beauty industry, colliding the worlds of glamour and body horror in a supernatural tale of one girl's deadly pursuit of perfection. With body horror hitting its stride with a master like David Cronenberg in the 80s, it seems like it can be a harder sell in 2022. Can one bring this style of horror back to the forefront, or has this subgenre become a moment in time? Dylan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, like I'm a big fan of James Wan. I think that *Malignant* was kind of hit or miss with people. I saw a lot of the what he was going for with that movie, with the kind of harkening back to movies like *Basket Case* and stuff like that. I thought that it was neat. Um, there was just a little bit of that actiony kind of stuff that he put into it that I don't necessarily know if it worked like to the greatest extent with me, but like I like the ideas, I like the concepts there. So yeah, I think like if we're talking about like a cosmetic thing, talking about like that world, that industry, and playing with body horror, like that's ripe for it. I mean, like that's a really interesting idea. But it's really going to come down all to the execution and exactly how he wants to handle that. Because we're talking about the guy that gave us Saw and who gave us, on top of *Malignant*, he started the Conjuring series. So like
Yeah.
he's varied. He's got a lot of different styles and a lot of things that he can play with. So it's kind of like it's I'm going to be curious to see where this goes. Is this going to be more like a Cronenberg Carpenter kind of style, or is he going to kind of go for kind of that more general audience kind of stuff? Because like although I like The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 a lot, I don't necessarily like what that franchise has become
Yeah.
as far as where they've spun off and stuff. But even to an extent, those are uh, really big tentpole horror films
Yeah.
where it's like they aren't going to necessarily satisfy all my itches, but they are entertaining.
And that's where I'm curious as well, because *Malignant*, I know again, there's a discourse on that one too. Some people love it, some people absolutely loathe it. But I thought it was a very unique film for its time. That kind of intertwining the body horror with the supernatural, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Because that film really kept you on your toes. You didn't really know where it was going to be going, and then that unveiling toward the end was like an oh my gosh moment. And yeah, I
Mm,
get lost in some of those actiony elements as well, where it kind of turns a little bit, and it's like I don't really know if this is really fitting into the theme of the movie itself. But one, it definitely has a gift for that body horror. I think he makes it really gritty. Adding that supernatural element, I think, only emphasizes it a little bit more. But Cronenberg in the '80s, man, there's nothing like him. So I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out. I don't know if body horror is a harder space to navigate. We just did the review on they slash them, and we talk about the pronouns and sexuality, and maybe uh, that is a hard space to navigate in terms of horror, or how to write something like that, and kind of keep up in an integrity to it. And I'm not sure how to feel about especially this whole cosmetic idea, and in terms of where uh we are more outspoken about body issues and how a lot of people have them, and what we see on screen all the time, the perfection, and how we that's kind of stuck in our head as something unachievable in a sense. So it's like here, I don't know if it becomes a harder space to navigate, especially where they're taking this idea of the beauty industry, where it's like I don't know if it's going to be a little bit harder to kind of have a commentary on. Is it going to kind of come off as ungenuine in a sense, or is it going to appeal to a mass audience too, depending on where they go here? I think it could. I think this is kind of a turning point here. Depending on how they handle this could be uh, a lot of people can kind of resonate with it, or a lot of people can absolutely hate it and say they didn't do it right. So I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out, because I don't know if body horror has been, at the forefront of horror in general. I mean, I know Cronenberg came out with Crimes of the Future. I haven't seen it yet, but I know it had a real short shelf life. It had a limited release. And I can't remember if it's actually out on physical media yet. I know it's about due to. So I can't remember if it's out. I haven't checked it out yet. And I know we had T-Tan come out, I think it was last year, which was a very small film that delves into body horror in a sense, where it's like I think that the main character has sex with a car and becomes pregnant. So you kind of delve into the supernatural body horror elements here. But again, those are very small films that a general audience didn't see. You really have to kind of search out, where Cronenberg in the 80s, a lot of people were going to go see Scanners, all that, all
The
his, all the,
Fly, all
yeah,
that
all the
stuff. Yeah.
classic Cronenberg stuff, where everyone was eating that up. Nowadays, he's not really that big marquee name anymore. So I'm curious to see if there's really, I think Malignant did do wonders for kind of body horror in general, where there was so much discourse there. A lot of people know, whether you were anticipating it, or you just checked it out because someone said either the twist was great or this is the dumbest movie I've ever seen. A lot of people ended up checking it out on HBO Max. So it's like, I think that did wonders in terms of getting people back in that body horror space. But I don't know if that big audience is there. I know the horror community is there for it, but as a general audience, I don't know if people are ready to dive back in that body horror realm.
We're gonna have to wait and see, because again, this is just something I'm gonna have to see exactly where the tone lands, what exactly the story they're trying to tell is. But I mean, James Wan, if he wants to tackle another subgenre of horror, like, let the man do it. Let's see what happens, because I think, although Malignant doesn't necessarily land for me as one of my top favorites, it was still pretty good and it was interesting to see. And I like kind of what he's harkening back to. So let's see what happens. Can he be a Cronenberg Jr.? Can he come out and really terrify people and get people back into the saddle when it comes to that body horror?
And I mean, he's given us so many different properties thus far, in terms of the horror realm, where it's like people have taken the ball and ran with them, and kind of created a lot of unique characters. So I'm curious to see where this is going to lead. I mean, I have faith. I'll definitely check it out. I'm just curious to see where it's going to take us.
Absolutely.
But that'll bring us into our fourth topic of a man who has brought us a lot of different franchises as well into the horror community. With the month of August finally arriving, it is time to pay our respects to one of the masters of horror. August 2nd marked the 83rd birthday of iconic horror director Wes Craven, and August 30th will be 7 years since his untimely passing. Craven is responsible for some of the most significant horror franchises and films throughout his career behind the camera. From Things in the Swamp to Vampires in Brooklyn, Craven was a master at sending chills down our spines and haunting our nightmares even to this day. Looking back on his career as a director and creator, what are some of his most iconic moments? I know this one, I remember the day really caught me by surprise, the news, because you weren't really thinking of that. Wes Craven always seemed like a staple, a guy that was always going to be
Oh
there
yeah.
creating different things. And then when he's gone, I feel like that has left a hole in the horror community because of looking at his body of work and the things that he created. And we talk about James Wan creating things that people can take the ball and run with. Wes Craven was one of those guys that created so many different properties, and he gave those balls to people to run with and take them as far as it can go.
No, I agree. He was definitely, like you said, a staple in this in this community. I mean, there's no denying that Nightmare on Elm Street, Hills Have Eyes, Scream. I mean, like he's got a lot of stuff that really has stood the test of time and has created many sequels. Many inspired films. Because I mean, I don't know if you get movies like Wrong Turn without Hills Have Eyes. I don't know if you get certain films today without Scream. There's a lot of people who talk about that being, a huge inspiration for them. And then Nightmare on Elm Street, of course. I mean, like it's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah,
He's one of the big three if you're talking about like horror
he's on the Mount
icons.
Rushmore.
Absolutely. And I mean, these are all come from the mind of this man. And then he's got some smaller ones that didn't work out. Like I'm still pining and hoping that maybe one day we'll get to see the original cut of Cursed.
Yeah,
Because like that's apparently a totally different film. And like, do I think that it's going to be the most amazing thing? No, but I mean, I know there was a different idea there. I know that there was before the studio got their hands on it, that Wes and oh God, what's his name? The writer of Scream,
Kevin Williamson.
Kevin Williamson, they were working on something special there, and they
Yeah,
loved the werewolf genre. You know how we feel about werewolves, so it's like I want to see that original cut.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I mean, like you talk about a guy who didn't necessarily want to be known as a horror filmmaker, but then kind of saw that this is kind of his bread and butter, and that this is where he kind of fell into it, and he embraced it, and he went for it, and literally is just one of the kings. Like he's up there with John Carpenter, and stuff like that. Like without him, you don't have movies like we have today.
yeah. He's a real filmmaker, and I was able to grab a video clip here of post mortem with Mick Garris, who had Wes Craven on. I definitely want to play that real quick so we can talk a little bit about it.
100%.
I had another friend, Peter Locke was his name, who kept coming to me and saying, you got to do another Last House. And it was the last thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to go back to that dark place again, And finally it came to the fact that I was broke. And he says, come to Vegas, we can go out in the desert. We don't need permits, and just write something in the desert. And that's how the Hills of Eyes came about. And in the interim of those years, I was just cutting trailers and working for other people on very tiny little things, and getting nowhere with being anything but a horror film director. And once you did the second one, then that's who you are. And the exception, the music of the heart, takes 20 years to get to.
So do you find that you were consigned to a ghetto in a way?
Yeah, but a lot of great things come out of the ghetto. I mean, jazz came out of the ghetto.
Absolutely.
So I think what you have to do at a certain point is appreciate the ghetto and say, okay, there's been some fantastic literature and art and movies done about this side of the human experience, and you have the ability to make a film in it. So take everything that you loved about what you were learning and teaching and just put it in there in a way that's not onerous and not preachy. And that's just respecting the material and respecting the genre and saying it doesn't have to be banal, it doesn't have to be exploitive, it doesn't have to be shallow. Anything you're capable of putting into this genre, it will take it. And there will be a smart audience that will see it.
And just before we dive into the Wes Craven thing, I mean, just what a gift Mick Garris gives us diving into these interviews with a lot of different horror directors, creators, effects artists, all these different things. I mean, that postmortem podcast is, if you're not listening to it, which if you're listening to Sunday Scaries, I assume you've listened to postmortem. At least I hope you would have. He just gives us so many gifts every week, diving into the minds of all these creators in the horror realm. It's definitely worth a listen. But going into that Wes Craven little tidbit there, I mean, it's funny to see how someone just falls into the horror genre for a moment and then stays, and maybe it was something he did not plan on, which could you imagine not having Wes Craven in the horror community? It would be it's
It'd be
baffling.
weird, man. It would definitely not feel right. But yeah, I agree with you. Like postmortem, fantastic show. I absolutely love Mick Garris and everything that he does on there. It gives you a unique insight to this stuff. And I mean, for him kind of coming up around this time, making films with these guys adjacently and just being able to kind of share that space, you get these great interviews with some of these classic horror filmmakers. And I mean, this is a great one with Wes Craven. Like, I think that they have a lot of good things to say, and like, he's real honest. He's really an open guy. And you hear a lot of that with the people that worked with him, just how, you know, what a kind-hearted man he was, and just
Yeah.
like kind of what he was able to do. And he was such a collaborator, and he was never, he always knew what he wanted, but he was never opposed to, people making suggestions and, deciding on how to do things. Um,
And,
like a big story that I can point to is the sequence where Randy is, giving his speech in Scream. So he's giving it, and he's giving the speech and everything, and he does like maybe 2 or 3 takes, and Wes is like, okay, that's good. Like, let's move on from that. And you kind of hear this thing where his name is escaping me. I'm trying to pull him up right now. Who is Randy? What's his
Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy. There you go. But yeah, so he's kind of like, well, I want to give this like one more go. Like, let me give it a shot. And Wes is like, no, we got it. We're good. Let's move on. We don't have time. We got to get things going. He asked him to give him one more try, and that ended up being the take that we see in the film. So it's like, it's just like he gave him that shot, and he performed for him, and it was great. And you see that loyalty, because even
Yep.
coming into the new Scream films, Scream 5, people were kind of apprehensive because Wes wasn't going to be a part of it. So, but they got him on their side, and for a lot of people, it worked.
And that's what I was going to bring up, where it's like you can tell just as a creator, as a person, to kind of have the hesitation to jump back into an established franchise. I mean, you go into Scream 5 and established franchise, it's going to be money. It's like jumping into a Halloween franchise, and people are still hesitant to do it because one man is not there to spearhead the project, and it's like Wes Craven meant that much to those people that have worked with him for 4 films straight through, and Kevin Williamson, he wrote the script, and, writing things, you already know, it can take you so far. You need someone to breathe life into those scripts. And Wes Craven was that guy. I mean, you look at, just listening, like you're bringing up the Jamie Kennedy scenario. There's so many stories like that where you have to have a director that knows it's a good script, knows what to keep, but knows what we can elaborate on. I know there are things in that original Scream that he's added in as they were shooting, as looking at saying, oh, we do need this and we do need that, just as to add those horror elements to it, to make it a little scarier. He knows what the audience wants. He's played in that space, so it's like he has become, people throw around master of horror, a lot to newer directors that haven't necessarily had that track record yet. They've had some good films, but Wes Craven is pound for pound one of the masters of horror, just looking at his track record. I mean, to play in the space of Scream, and to take that franchise for 4 films, and then to create a character like Freddy Krueger that transcends pop culture, that was on MTV, where it's like you don't see that happen that often. I mean, yes, Robert Englund really did take that character to another level, but the creation for that was there with Wes Craven. I mean, none of that would have happened without his mind.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that, he left a mark that, is so unique. I guess a little claw scratch, if you want to say, from Freddy Krueger there, that you're never going to be able to heal from. You're never going to replace. You can only, see what was there, learn from it, and, just take his teachings and move on and try your best to, pay your respects and do what you can. Yeah, it's definitely a tragedy that he's gone. And I mean, it's like crazy to think it's been 7 years almost, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
On the 30th.
that's wild.
It's very, very weird to think, at the beginning of the month he celebrates his birthday, and then at the end of the month is his passing. So, he's got all these established properties, but even something like People Under the Stairs, that is such a unique film. It works on so many levels. There's a social commentary there that, especially for the early 90s, I don't know if a lot of people were ready for or necessarily even catching on to it, because maybe they were kind of removed from that element. So looking at Wes Craven, he always had this boldness that was not afraid. Looking at The Hills Have Eyes, and that was the 70s, I believe.
Yeah.
A very unique film for its time. Last House on the Left. I mean, a temple in the horror community. That's one of those films that you watch, you're indoctrinated into to kind of to live in the space of horror. And I think Wes Craven, going through his filmography, even his random weird ones, Deadly Friend, all these odd films that he had come out with, going through from beginning to end, for his filmography, you would come out watching only Wes Craven things. You would come out as a well-rounded horror fan.
No, I agree. I think that if you haven't taken a dive into his filmography, if that's something that is still eludes you, what are you waiting for? Hop on in there, take a look, because you're going to definitely see where a lot of this inspiration, where you can see like he's shaped horror. Like you can
Yep.
see a lot of it, like not only with Nightmare on Elm Street, but again with Scream. And it's just like he is one of those guys that just, when he would put out content, whether it's good or bad, I mean, like he was always trying something different, and
Yep.
he was trying to do something nice and cool and fun. And yeah, I think that we wouldn't be where we are today without him.
So for Mr. Wes Craven, we will raise our glasses once again, as we pay our respects to the man, the myth, the legend. Now we do have, as we always say here on the podcast and the Sunday Scaries, that we always have so many different things in the works. So we don't want to dive too deep into his filmography here, because we will probably swing back around at some point, and we have another different property coming out where we will dive a little bit deeper into Wes Craven. But to leave off here, what a unique filmmaker, a great human being. I feel like his death is still being felt in the horror community even to this day. But he has given us so many timeless films that we can turn on. I've lost Nightmare on Elm Street is something I just turn on now to pass the time. And I mean, going from the original Nightmare on Elm Street to New Nightmare. I mean, what an original concept. That
Absolutely.
Meta-ness. He just, again, unique writer, unique storyteller. You can't say it enough. We were glad to have him on the horror team, I suppose.
100%. I agree. He was definitely something that will be sorely missed and has been. And we will continue to miss him. But I guess we can hop right into my final segment here. So hopping into Blu-ray and streaming, everybody, after talking some Wes Craven.
We do need a big box set for Nightmare on Elm Street.
I was going to just say that. Yeah, we need a little Nightmare on Elm Street. We need some Wes Craven movies. We're getting the Scream ones, but we need more Wes Craven on 4K. That's what I was going to say.
Let's do it.
Pretty interesting week for us here. So, I'll start things off. We got a nice little announcement for a film that I absolutely adore, and I know you do too. The Return of the Living Dead is coming to 4K. So from Scream Factory, they've been killing it recently with their 4K upgrades. When you have a catalog like they do, you might as well, dive in and upscale everything you can. This was a really welcome one to see. I actually ended up watching it on Shudder just after I saw the announcement, because it's been a little while since I saw it. I'm super looking forward to it. I think that it's great. It's going to have a little special edition here. I can't quite figure out exactly what that is that's coming with it. It looks like it could be some maybe kind of special box set, maybe a poster. Yeah, because it wasn't in my little release that I got here to look over before, but I'm on Blu-ray.com at the moment, and I do see it. So we're going to have two different editions of that there. Very excited for that one, of course. And, we're going to be talking also, Scream Factory hit us again with something that I was definitely a little more excited for at first. but then kind of realizing what exactly it was,
Oh yeah.
I kind of died down a little bit. But it happens. Not everything can be a winner, um, and I think that it is kind of setting a precedent for something that could be coming on the horizon. And I
Yeah.
hope it hits us. But we got a Halloween box set announcement, and that is coming with 6 H2O, Resurrection, and
Wasn't it 8?
was it 8?
I can't remember. There was some.
Oh,
Okay,
no. So it's 8 discs. So it's
8
4K
discs.
and
Okay.
Blu-ray, and then a bonus disc.
Okay.
And both cuts of 6. So it's just those 3 films. Um, I know that a lot of people are kind of criticizing the artwork on it, but I thought the artwork actually looked pretty cool. I like the news clippings
Yeah,
and
I
everything,
actually
the style
enjoyed the
they're going
artwork.
for.
Now,
Yeah.
how this went down was they announced it, and then you sent me a message, pretty excited about it.
Hmm.
And then I sent back, isn't it only those 3 films, and then that put us a damper on your parade completely, because that happened to me as well. I had seen it, and I was actually going to send it to you, and it stopped me when I looked, and it was like, oh no, this is only those 3 films, and I was like, weird choice, but I mean, I guess they did release individually those first 5 films, so they're like, honestly, I kind of understand it because I don't know if anyone's really gonna go out on a limb and buy 6 on
Or
4K each.
Resurrection.
Yeah, so it's like, H2O maybe, but the other ones are a hard sell if they're not in a package deal. So it's like I kind of understand their logic there, but this is definitely a pass for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off as well, just because I think that we're gonna be getting in about a year or two's time. We'll probably be getting a new 4K Halloween box set,
Yeah.
maybe even including the David Gordon Green films. I kind of hope
Oh yeah.
so, and then we could just have this whole complete set and not have to worry too much about it.
Yeah,
I
that I would
have I
absolutely.
have the smaller release on Blu-ray. I don't have the big box set,
Yep.
um, and it's
And
far too expensive now. But
yeah,
yeah.
that thing is like I've seen it several times, and I kick myself for not pulling the trigger on it. But honestly, if we do get a 4K release and it's more so like the artwork for the Friday 13th box set, just to have them next to each other, because the artwork for
Beautiful.
the current box set, I mean, it's okay. It's nothing, eye catching. It'd be nice to have that box set, but if we get something very vibrant like that Friday 13th box set, I would love putting them next to each other. And of course, if we get the Nightmare on Elm Street box set, to have 3 in that same kind of style artwork would be just so gorgeous to have on your shelf.
No, I 100% agree. I'm looking forward to that for sure. But yeah, so that's about it for Blu-rays this week. Only those 2 real releases I wanted to highlight. As far as streaming goes, we've talked about them all weekend long, but we got Prey hitting us this weekend. You can catch our reviews on the channel for that already. We got a spoiler-free and a spoiler-filled review there, and they slash them as well as hit the stream, has hit the web. So I mean, those 2 are definitely going to be the ones you're going to want to check out. And yeah, hopefully this week we'll get another couple nice announcements, maybe a couple of other things out of the Scream Factory catalog, maybe some other stuff coming out from Severin and Synapse and a few other of these companies. I want to see what they got coming
When
down
it
the
comes
pipeline.
to when it comes to Scream Factory, do you ever get nervous where it's like, okay, for Scream Factory, the artwork is so nice
Hmm.
and you want to buy it, and then they come out with a 4K release, down the line, do you ever feel hesitant to pull the trigger on any of these films? Because it's like, we brought up Videodrome, and I have it on Criterion, and then you said they're releasing it, Arrow Video's releasing it. It's like, I know Videodrome for Criterion already has great artwork, and I know Arrow's going to have great artwork. So I know I'm going to end up owning both of them, and then I'm going to end up in this whole Scream Factory scenario where I want the 4K, but I don't want to wait for, I don't want to wait to get the Blob on 4K. I want the Blob right now so I can watch it, because Scream Factory, sometimes you have these films, like Parasite. I waited for the 4K. Even though I love Parasite, I could get it, streaming. Whereas Scream Factory releases, that's like, that's where their audience. So, you don't want to wait, and maybe there's gonna be a 4K down the line. Does that ever make you hesitant?
Um, For certain films, maybe. Usually a lot of modern films I get more like that. If there's like X was teased to have that 4K, but now that's kind of dead in the water. We don't know where that is. So it's like stuff like that I'm a little more hesitant about. But with Scream Factory, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I look at it as if it's a movie I want bad enough, I'll get it, and then I'll just
Yeah.
upgrade when it's convenient for me. I don't
Where it's like,
necessarily need it right off the bat, and I don't want to spend the 35 bucks on it right away. But if it's something where it's kind of like, okay, maybe I'll wait for a sale and see where we go, but then a 4K gets announced between that time, then I'll wait for the 4K.
I own way too many editions of They Live, because it's like they had the special edition Scream Factory one, then they had the Steelbook, and then they had the 4K. And it's just like, how many of these different ones can I own? I mean, I'm keeping them all, but it's like maybe some films where I don't have that connection with. It's like, well, now I have to make a choice of which one I want to keep here.
No, that's the life of a physical media collector, my friend. That is just the hardship that we must
The
carry as
undertake
we
here.
do this. But alrighty, man. I think that about wraps us up here for the Sunday Scary. So another great successful episode 10. So
In
thank
the
you if you've
books,
been sticking with us, if you've been watching. Feel free to leave a comment. Let us know what episode you started on, and that could be some good fun. And just
maybe it started today.
maybe you did start today. If you did, feel free to hit that subscribe button. We're always dropping these every Sunday. And we're also always keeping up the channel with lots of content. We're always trying our best to keep things going. And we've been pretty consistent so far. And I don't see that train stopping anytime soon. So
We try to get all this horror news blended and ready for your consumption here, for your nice little horror smoothie, as we put it, I believe, on the first episode.
mhm.
So we try to get you all that gore and nutrition to start your work week.
Absolutely. If you are looking for us on any social media, we do Twitter. Follow us at SplattercastPod, where you can keep up with us, where we kind of keep our raw thoughts and first initial feelings on things, and just general conversation starters always popping up in there. It's always a good place to keep up with us and follow us to find out what's going on. We post every single episode of anything we do, any review on there. So if you want to know when it hits before YouTube notifies you, you can find it right there. You can also find our shows like Splattercast on other platforms like Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Apple Music, all that good stuff. Sunday Scaries is now going to be moved to a YouTube exclusive, just due to kind of how our stuff is structured at the moment. Could we throw it back up on Spotify at some point later on down the road? Maybe. But that's just something we're going to have to do. And I think it tends to, as far as the viewers go and what we've kind of looked at our analytics, it just makes more sense for it to kind of stay here and make this more of its permanent home. So you'll have to catch us on here. But like I said, with our other shows, you can catch us also on those other platforms. But yeah, I guess if that about wraps us up. Luke, you got anything for him?
No, another diverse week in the horror community. We will be on the lookout again this week for some more horror news for you for next Sunday. Yeah, but until then, we will see you back here next Sunday. And I'm Luke Janesco.
And I'm Dylan Newell.
And friends, stay scared.